Have you ever made a promise you hoped you'd never have to keep? That's how it started for Lee. A pact, forged in alcohol and arrogance during his college years, had returned to haunt him. Devil's Anvil. The name itself felt like a dare. A scorched expanse buried deep in the Mojave Desert. An area locals avoided and maps barely acknowledged. A cursed place, according to those who still whispered about it. But a promise was a promise. And when Noah called, voice buzzing with excitement and nostalgia, Liam knew he couldn't say no, even if his gut screamed otherwise. They arrived just before dusk, their tires crackling over the loose gravel like brittle bones snapping underfoot. The heat was relentless, thick as molten glass, pressing down from a sky so clear it felt like a lie. Liam, Chloe, Maya, and Noah, once inseparable, now awkward strangers bound by history and guilt, stepped out into the inferno. Liam surveyed the landscape. Devil's Anvil was a graveyard of rock and silence. No signs, no markers. Just endless formations shaped by time into grotesque figures, twisted spires and jagged towers that loomed like petrified giants. He reached into the trunk, pulling out supplies with the practiced efficiency of someone desperate for purpose. "This place looks like hell coughed it up," Maya muttered, hoisting her pack over her shoulder. Her tone was flat, clinical. The doctor in her refused to romanticize the heatstroke-inducing wasteland. "Epic," Noah chimed in, eyes hidden behind reflective sunglasses. "It's like Burning Man had a baby with Chernobyl. This is exactly what I pictured when we made the pact. Remember that night? 5th floor dorm, bottle of mezcal, spooky stories and blood oaths. Face your fears together, no matter what." Liam winced. Of course he remembered. But that was before Jason's death. Before everything changed. Chloe, silent until now, looked out across the barren expanse. "It feels wrong. Like we shouldn't be here. This place doesn't want us." Liam didn't answer. He didn't have to. The truth was, he felt it too. A low thrum in his chest, as if the land itself was waiting, watching. They set up camp quickly, working in uneasy silence. Tents popped open with practiced motion. A ring of stones for a fire pit, food unpacked. Water stored under the largest tarp, carefully shaded. Maya checked her sat phone. 1 bar, maybe 2 if she stood on a rock and whispered to the wind. It was enough. For now. As the sun dipped below the ragged horizon, the desert transformed. Shadows lengthened, clawing across the sand like the fingers of something buried beneath it. The heat ebbed, but a chill replaced it, a wrongness that had nothing to do with temperature. They sat around the flickering fire, its light painting them in ghostly tones. "We used to laugh like crazy on trips like this," Noah said, forcing a smile. "Remember that hike up Dead Man's Trail? We almost died," Maya deadpanned. "Yeah," Noah grinned. "Good times." The laughter died quickly, swallowed by the stillness. Then came the sounds, faint at first. The scrape of something dragging across stone. A low whistle, too steady to be the... Chloe stiffened. Liam leaned closer to the fire. "Probably animals," he said. "Coyote or..." "No," Chloe cut in, her voice tight. "That's not a coyote. It's something else." The desert went silent. Even the insects stopped. They didn't sleep well. Something prowled the perimeter of the camp that night. Just beyond the firelight, Liam sat up, flashlight in hand, the beam sweeping over empty sand and shifting rock. But he never saw anything, just movement in the corner of his eye. A breath of air that smelled wrong, metallic, fungal. By morning the heat had returned like a punishment. But the real shock came when Maya discovered the missing supplies. "Our water's gone." She stood over the shaded tarp, now tossed aside. The 3 large water containers were missing. Only the smallest one remained, half empty. Noah laughed nervously. "That's impossible. I helped stash them. They were right here." Liam crouched, scanning the sand. No tracks. Wait. What he saw made his skin crawl. Footprints. One was clearly a human boot, Noah's, unmistakably. The others were... wrong. Not paw prints. Not human. Large, splayed, with long clawed toes that dug deep into the sand like talons. "Noah," Chloe started, voice trembling. "I didn't touch the water," he snapped. Why would I? We have to leave, Liam said. Now. But the GPS was missing too. Ripped from Liam's bag, the entire compartment slashed open like it had been clawed apart. Panic set in. Rationality frayed. The desert, endless and indifferent, loomed on all sides. The trail they'd taken in seemed to vanish behind heat shimmer and dunes. Orientation became guesswork. They packed what little they had and moved east, at least what they believed was east. Guided by the sun and desperation. Hours passed. The heat intensified. Landmarks looked different. The rocks shifted in ways that made no geological sense. Then, just as Chloe was about to collapse, they saw it. A structure wedged between two stone outcroppings. Concrete. Metal. A long-abandoned installation, its satellite dish rusted and bent like a wilted flower. What is that? Maya whispered. Shelter, Liam replied. Come on. They approached cautiously. The front door, half open, groaned like a wounded animal as Liam pushed it aside. The air inside was cooler, stale, and filled with dust that clung like spores. The interior hallway stretched into darkness, lit only by the thin beam of Maya's flashlight. They had no idea that stepping into that place was crossing a threshold, not just of space, but of reality itself, because something had been waiting for them, and now it was awake. The interior of the facility was cold in a way that had nothing to do with temperature. The moment they crossed the threshold, the air thickened, like breathing through cotton soaked in stagnant water. The flashlight beams carved narrow tunnels through the gloom, revealing flickers of rusted metal, fallen ceiling tiles, and endless dust. But it was more than just dust. It clung to them, got under their skin. Chloe swore it smelled sweet, almost like something decaying under a layer of sugar. They moved as a unit, steps echoing against the concrete floor in a rhythm too slow to be natural. Each corridor felt longer than the last. Each door they opened revealed a tableau of abandonment. Overturned desks, ancient monitors long since dead, paperwork scattered like someone had tried to burn it, but changed their mind halfway through. This place hasn't been touched in decades, Maya murmured, flipping through a mildew-stained binder. But it's not right. Some of these papers are dated in the 70s. Others are from 2003. Look. Noah leaned in. Project Anima Terrae. Sounds like a metal band. Chloe took the page from her hands. Her fingers trembled slightly, barely perceptible. This isn't just science. This is ritual. They weren't just researching. They were trying to contact something. Liam knelt beside a filing cabinet, pried it open with a grunt, and pulled out a water-stained logbook. Listen to this, he said, flipping through entries. Day 12. The test subjects have begun reporting recurring visions. Entities in the sand. Voices in their sleep. Same symbols drawn by unrelated individuals. He flipped to another. Day 37. The compound in the plant extract seems to act as a conduit. They call it the root of memory. It stimulates the limbic system and induces a persistent hallucinatory state. But it's more than hallucination. They all see the same things, hear the same voice. Maya's eyes narrowed. What plant? Do we have samples? Noah pointed to a sealed cabinet in the corner. Inside, several intact jars pulsed faintly with bioluminescent green fluid. Suspended in the center of each was a plant, like a cactus, but wrong. Its skin shimmered with a slick sheen, and underneath, faintly visible veins pulsed like arteries. Chloe stepped back. That's not a plant. That's a parasite. The silence in the room thickened. Then, from deeper in the complex, a soft noise echoed. Slow, deliberate, like something dragging across the concrete. Liam froze. Did you hear that? Yeah, Noah whispered, clutching the nearest metal bar like a weapon. It's coming closer. The sound stopped. Then another. A door creaking somewhere down the hall. A metallic scrape. Then silence. Chloe's voice was barely above a whisper. We're not alone. They backed into the lab, extinguishing the flashlight. The only light now came from the jars, casting an eerie green glow that pulsed like a heartbeat. In that moment, surrounded by the whispers of old experiments and the hum of something wrong, It wasn't hard to believe the desert was watching. A shape passed across the doorway, too quick to identify, a shadow without a source. Then the voice. Not spoken aloud, but felt, vibrating through their teeth, their bones, like dry leaves being crushed underfoot. Guilt, fear, feed me. Maya grabbed a jar. Light hurts it, she hissed. It backed away from the jars. That's our weapon. As if on cue, the shadow reappeared. Less defined now, almost fluid, crawling along the wall as if it had no need for gravity. It moved like a thought rather than a thing. Liam snatched another jar, its warmth uncomfortable in his hand. When I say go, run. The door exploded inward as the shadow surged forward. Liam hurled the jar. Glass shattered. Green fluid splashed across the threshold, and the creature recoiled with a scream that wasn't sound but sensation. A high-pitched ache inside their skulls. The group sprinted out, past the writhing darkness, and deeper into the installation. They burst into a control room. Dead monitors, wires hanging like entrails. But one screen flickered to life as they entered, showing static. Then a distorted image. A man in a lab coat, wild-eyed, whispering directly to camera. If anyone sees this, run. The plant is a symbiote. The entity is real. It sleeps in the root system. And we fed it. We fed it with fear. With memory. It's awake now. It's inside us. The screen cut to black. Silence. Then a slam echoed through the facility, followed by a low groan as another door shifted. Footsteps, many this time, but uneven, arrhythmic, not human. Noah clutched his head. It's inside me, he said. I remember this place. I was here before, but I wasn't myself. Chloe's eyes widened. You came here before us? Why? I don't know, Noah whispered, voice cracking. I think something brought me, called me. Maya checked the door. The hallway outside twisted left, toward a service tunnel. We need to move. Now. They ran again, but something was following. Not just one thing now, many. Crawling, clicking, whispering their names. Echoes of thoughts they hadn't spoken aloud in years. As they reached the tunnel's edge, the walls seemed to breathe. Veins of that same green light pulsed through the concrete, forming shapes, faces, expressions locked in screams. Liam kicked open the rusted door. Fresh air hit them like a blessing, even as the darkness of the tunnel beckoned. Behind them, the facility groaned, and something growled. Whatever they'd disturbed was no longer sleeping. The tunnel swallowed them whole, a narrow esophagus of concrete and iron that seemed to constrict as they moved. Their footsteps echoed in a rhythm that didn't match their pace, always just slightly off, like an unseen fifth member was lagging behind. Chloe kept glancing back, her breath quickening, her mind beginning to fray. She could feel it, the pressure building behind her eyes, the subtle pulse beneath her skin. It was as if the desert itself had burrowed into her veins. Liam led, gripping the glowing jar like a torch, its faint green light casting their shadows long and misshapen against the walls. Every so often, a flicker of movement would dart just outside the radius of light. Nothing distinct, only the suggestion of presence. Maya stayed close to Noah, watching him with growing unease. His steps were unsteady, his skin slick with sweat that smelled wrong. Not salt and fear, but something earthy, fungal. I keep seeing it, Noah murmured. In my dreams. This tunnel. I was here before. I opened a door. What door? Maya asked. I don't know, he said, voice distant. It wasn't physical. It was in my head. Like, I gave permission. The words hung in the air, pregnant with implication. Permission for what? They reached the tunnel's end. An old freight lift sealed with a metal grate. The controls were coated in dust. But when Maya pressed the button, the motor above sparked to life with a tortured groan. Believe this still works, It's not that it works, Chloe said, voice hollow. It's that it wants to. The platform descended slowly, creaking with every foot it dropped. The darkness around them deepened, and with it, the air grew thick with moisture. Not the dryness of desert heat, but a clinging dampness that made their clothes stick to their skin and their lungs feel heavy. Then came the whispers. At first, they were indistinct murmurs, like wind through dead grass. But soon, words began to form. Liam. He stiffened. Why didn't you save me? Jason's voice. He gripped the railing, knuckles white. It's not real, he hissed. It's not. Liam. I was right there. You watched me go under. No, he said louder, voice cracking. Stop it. Noah collapsed to his knees, clutching his head. It's feeding off us, our guilt. It knows. The lift stopped with a clang. Ahead, another corridor. This one carved from rock rather than concrete. The facility above had been man-made. This was older. Much older. They stepped off the platform into a tunnel that pulsed with an almost biological quality. The walls were smooth but covered in strange fibrous growths. Tendrils. Roots. They pulsed gently with green light, like a sleeping heartbeat. I think we're inside it, Maya whispered. The plant. The organism. It's not just in the soil. It is the soil. Chloe reached out, brushing one of the tendrils with her fingertips. It recoiled, then shivered. From deep within the stone, a sound resonated. A low, hollow cry that didn't belong to anything human. They followed the passage, deeper into the earth. And then they found it. A chamber. Cavernous. Silent. At its center, a pit. Circular. Lined with stone etched in symbols both geometric and organic. Pulsing green light flowed upward from the pit like steam, and suspended above it, rooted into the air like an upside-down tree, was a massive cluster of the same plant they'd seen in jars. But this one was alive, breathing. Its tendrils extended across the ceiling, pulsing like arteries, faces pressed against its surface from the inside, twisting, screaming silently before fading again. It's a neural network, Maya said in disbelief. Biological, but psychic. It's storing memories, emotions, souls. Noah stepped forward, eyes wide with recognition. This is where I came. I remember now. I found this place weeks ago. It was dormant, and I touched it. Chloe grabbed his arm. Why? Why would you do that? I was drawn to it, he said, voice breaking. It spoke to me, promised answers, redemption. But I didn't know I was bringing it back. You didn't bring it back, Liam said grimly. You opened the door. Noah fell to his knees, shaking. The veins in his arms glowed faintly green now, like vines wrapping around his bones. I can feel it inside me, he whispered. It's growing. Maya rummaged through her bag, pulling out one of the remaining jars. This is the purified extract. It weakened the entity before. Maybe it can slow the spread. Chloe nodded. Do it. She uncapped the jar and poured the contents onto Noah's arm. He screamed as the fluid hissed against his skin, smoke rising. The green glow dimmed but didn't vanish. The root resisted. Suddenly the chamber shook. A roar, deep, ancient, furious, reverberated through the rock. It knows, Chloe said. It knows we're trying to stop it. The pit began to glow brighter. The faces in the plant writhed more violently. We have to end this, Liam said. Burn it, all of it. No, Maya replied. Fire won't work. It's not just physical. It's tied to us. Our guilt feeds it. Then how do we stop it? Chloe stepped toward the pit, staring into the churning light. The truth. That's what it wants. That's what gave it form. The others looked at her. We have to face what we've buried. Bring it to the surface. Together. The ground rumbled again, cracks splitting the stone. The pit screamed. Jason's voice, Maya's, Noah's, even Chloe's. Each one distorted and raw. Liam stared into the pit. All right, then we face it, all of it. But none of them were ready for what the pit would show them. The chamber felt like the hollow lung of some ancient beast, breathing slow and shallow through the pulsing root system above. The pit in the center throbbed with green light, less a glow now and more a call. A heartbeat that matched their own. They stood at the edge, 4 broken souls on the brink of revelation, knowing full well what the next step would demand of them. Liam went first. He knelt beside the pit, the air around it vibrating with a sound too low for the ear, a thrum that rattled his teeth and crawled down his spine. The moment his fingers brushed the lip of the stone, the world dropped away. The chamber vanished. So did the other. He was alone, and not alone. He stood on the shore of a lake, water dark as ink under a moonless sky. The surface was glassy, untouched, except for the body floating face down near the reeds. Jason. The memory came back in perfect clarity. No filters, no rationalizations. He remembered the fight, the things they said, the push. Jason stumbling, hitting his head, the dull thud, the brief pause, less than a second, before Liam dove in. But that pause, it mattered. It always had. It was the gap between guilt and murder, and he had lived in that space for years. Jason rolled over. His face was pale, lips blue, but his eyes were open, and they stared directly at Liam. "You waited," he whispered. "You chose to wait." Liam opened his mouth to protest, to explain, but the words died. The lake boiled around him, and Jason began to sink, dragged down by unseen hand. Liam screamed, reaching for him, but the water turned to sand, and his arms were too heavy. The sand climbed his body, seeping into his mouth, choking his breath with the taste of regret. Then, suddenly, he was back, gasping, on his hands and knees beside the pit. Chloe was beside him, eyes wide with fear. "Liam, what did you see?" He didn't answer. He didn't need to. She knew. She always had. "I saw it too," she whispered. "The call Jason made before that night. He wanted to tell me something. Something about you. But I was angry. I ignored it." Maya moved forward. "I'm next." She touched the stone. Her world shifted. A hospital room, fluorescent lights flickering overhead. Jason's body on a gurney covered with a sheet. She remembered checking him herself, telling the others the injuries matched a fall. But even then, she'd known. The bruising didn't align. The water in his lungs was minimal, but she signed off anyway. She didn't want to believe her friends were capable of more than an accident, and because of that, the truth stayed buried. The scene twisted. Now Jason was sitting upright on the gurney, eyes black as voids. "You were supposed to heal," he rasped. "But you chose silence." Maya screamed. The hospital room collapsed inward, walls melting like wax. And just before everything went black, she heard a voice. Not Jason's, but her own. No one could know. Not then. Not ever. She came back to the chamber shaking, her nose bleeding. Noah approached the pit. His hands trembled violently, green light flickering under his skin like a firefly trying to escape. "I already know what I did," he muttered. "I watched. I saw it happen. And I said nothing." He touched the stone. The desert. Night. The lake. Liam and Jason arguing. Noah hidden behind a tree. Drunk. Afraid. Watching. Hearing the splash. Seeing Jason struggle, then disappear beneath the surface. He could have shouted. Could have run. Could have done anything, but he didn't. Not until it was too late. And then he helped build the lie. But this time, the vision went further. He saw himself weeks ago, standing at the entrance of the facility, drawn there like a moth to flame. He stepped inside, alone, found the chamber, touched the root, and something touched back, crawled inside, took root. He wasn't just the messenger, he was the seed. When he came back, his eyes glowed faintly. He vomited black sludge and collapsed. Maya rushed to him, checking his pulse. "He's alive, but barely." Chloe turned back to the pit. "It's not just showing us our guilt. It's feeding off it, growing stronger." Liam stood, wiping blood from his mouth. "Then we stop feeding it." The chamber trembled violently. A new sound echoed. Grating. Wet. From the corridor they'd come through, a shape emerged. Not shadow this time. Flesh. The creature stood taller than a man, hunched and twisted, covered in root-like tendrils that writhed like worms. Its face was a mass of shifting features, constantly reconfiguring. Jason's eyes, Chloe's mouth, Liam's jaw, Maya's tears. Guilt, it hissed. Memory. Flesh. It lunged. They scattered, grabbing jars of purified extract, hurling them like grenades. The creature screamed, part of its chest dissolving in a flash of green light. But it reformed just as quickly, roaring in a voice made from every memory they wished they could forget. Chloe grabbed Liam. "It's not enough to fight it. We have to break the cycle. Sever the root. Maya pointed to the pit. It's a conduit, a neural core. If we can destroy the seed inside, cut the link, it might die. Noah stirred, eyes opening. His voice was weak, but clear. Use me. They froze. It's in me, he said. I'm part of it now. If I go into the pit, I can destroy it from within. Liam shook his head. No. There has to be another way. Chloe knelt beside Noah. Are you sure? Noah smiled, tears in his eyes. I should have spoken years ago. Maybe this makes up for it. He stood, barely. Green veins pulsed across his neck, his arms, his chest. He looked like the plant had already claimed him. Maybe it had. But for now, he was still himself. He stepped to the edge of the pit. The creature screamed and surged forward. Liam and Maya held it back, throwing the last of the extract as Chloe took Noah's hand. I'm sorry, she whispered. Me too. Then Noah fell into the light. The moment he vanished, the chamber exploded with sound and motion. The root above convulsed violently, faces screaming as they dissolved into vapor. The creature screamed, no longer a roar, but a cry of anguish, as it began to wither, roots retracting, body cracking apart like dried clay. The pit flashed once, blinding white, and then everything went dark. When the light faded, the world was silence. Not the peaceful, restful kind, but the silence that follows an explosion, where your ears ring and your mind claws for balance. Chloe was the first to move, blinking through the smoke, her hands scraped and bleeding, body trembling. The chamber still existed, but barely. The root above had collapsed in on itself, blackened and dead, its twisted arteries shriveled and still. The faces were gone, the green light extinguished. Liam stirred beside her, coughing, eyes darting around like a man waking from a nightmare only to find himself in another. Noah, he rasped. There was no answer. The pit was no longer glowing, just a deep, dark hollow in the stone, cold and unwelcoming. Chloe crawled to the edge and looked down. Nothing. No body. No light. Just shadow. Maya knelt nearby, silent, her hands clenched around a broken vial. She'd hit the creature square in the chest moments before Noah jumped. She'd watched the light surge through it, watched the root above spasm and die. She should have felt relief, triumph, but all she felt was a numb weight pressing against her ribs. The price had been paid, the sacrifice made, but the guilt, it lingered. They sat in the aftermath, surrounded by the stillness of death. Then, movement, a soft shift in the dust near the edge of the pit. Chloe turned, hope rising like bile. But it wasn't Noah. Something else was crawling out. First fingers, too long, skin peeling. Then a face, obscured in shadow, its shape flickering between familiarity and wrongness. The creature hadn't died. It had shed. It was smaller now, not monstrous, human-sized. A figure, identical to Noah. But it wasn't him. The clone stood at the edge of the pit, tilting its head. Its eyes glowed faintly green. It smiled, a smile too wide, too smooth. You thought you won, it said in a voice that echoed. But seeds don't die in fire. They scatter. Maya grabbed a shard of broken vial. Get back! The creature stepped forward, unfazed. He was willing, yes, brave even, but he was infected. Root and rot, flesh and fear. I've tasted your truth now. I know your shape. Liam staggered to his feet. We're not afraid of you anymore. No, the thing said, grin spreading. You're afraid of what comes next. The stone floor beneath them cracked. From every crevice, tiny tendrils pushed through, reaching, searching. 1,000 infant roots, eager and hungry. The pit had been one node, but the organism, it was never centralized. It was a network, a hive. You burned the heart, it whispered, but the nervous system remembers. The air grew thick again, humid and heavy with the scent of decay. The chamber shook, and above, the tunnel groaned as roots began to spread up the walls, reclaiming the dead. We need to go, Maya said. Now. They didn't argue. The 3 remaining friends scrambled for the tunnel they'd entered through, dodging fresh growth as it slithered and hissed. The lift shaft was collapsing in vines, the platform gone. But a side passage, previously blocked, had cracked open in the blast. A tunnel of ancient stone, marked with worn carvings and soot. "Looks like an emergency escape," Liam shouted. They dove in, Chloe last, turning back for just a moment to see the clone of Noah standing in the center of the collapsing chamber. Its arms spread wide, as if embracing its own annihilation, or perhaps something far worse, gestating. "You'll take me with you," it said softly. "You already have." Then the rocks fell, sealing the chamber behind them. The tunnel was endless, twisting, uneven, but gradually, the air began to shift. Less humid, more arid. The scent of the desert returned, dust and salt and ancient bones. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time didn't behave properly underground. But eventually the tunnel widened into a narrow mouth of stone, opening to the cold night air. They stumbled into moonlight, breathing the sky like it was water. They were out. Devil's Anvil lay behind them, quiet and still beneath the stars. The desert seemed ordinary again, blank and merciless in its solitude, but none of them trusted it anymore. They walked for hours, following the path on the old map Liam had salvaged. The sun rose, casting golden light across the dunes, illuminating the scars on their skin and deeper ones beneath. And then, salvation. A highway. A lone truck approaching. An old man behind the wheel, skeptical but kind. He didn't ask many questions. They didn't offer any answers. Inside the cab, the air conditioning felt like heaven. Maya bandaged Chloe's hand. Liam stared out the window, silent. After a long stretch of road, Maya finally spoke. "What do we tell them? About Noah? About the facility?" Liam took a breath, then shook his head. "The truth. About Jason. About what we did. That's what matters now. And the rest?" Chloe met his gaze. Who would believe it? They rode in silence. But in the back seat, Chloe reached for her ankle. Something itched beneath the fabric of her jeans. She rolled it up slightly and froze. A thin line of green, like a vein, pulsed just beneath the surface of her skin. They reached the edge of civilization just after midday. A town called Harper's Hollow. Little more than a gas station, a diner, and a sheriff's office baking under the desert sun. The trucker dropped them off with a nod, never asking why 3 people looked like they'd crawled through hell. Inside the diner, the air smelled of old coffee and stale biscuits. Chloe sat by the window, pulling at her sleeve, eyes locked on the faint green pulse threading through the skin above her ankle. It was fading now, slower, but still there. Maya ordered 3 glasses of water and some food, her movements mechanical. Liam excused himself to the bathroom, where he locked the door and stared into the mirror, expecting to see Jason's face looking back. They didn't talk much. What could they say? After they'd eaten, Maya called in a tip to a federal agency. No names, no details, just a location. Coordinates burned into their minds forever. Let them find the facility, or what remained of it. Let them think it was just another Cold War relic. Let them try to explain the bones. They caught a ride on a Greyhound out of Harper's Hollow, slept on and off. No dreams, or too many to remember. By the time they reached the city, they were different people, or trying to be. Maya returned to her hospital residency. Liam took a leave of absence, telling his department he needed time. Chloe moved into a sublet apartment downtown, cutting ties with everything familiar. She didn't return any calls, especially not from Liam. Weeks passed. The mark on Chloe's ankle didn't disappear. It grew. At first, it was subtle, an itch, a warmth. Then the dreams returned, not hers, someone else's. A boy drowning in a lake, a woman screaming in a field of salt, a child digging in the sand until his fingers bled, whispering secrets to something that answered back in green light. She began to sleepwalk. Neighbors reported seeing her on the roof at 3 a.m., standing barefoot, eyes wide and empty, whispering to the sky. When asked about it, she had no memory, just the faint smell of soil in her sheets. Maya called one night, frantic. "Liam's in the hospital." Chloe's heart stopped. He collapsed at work, seizure. They found something in his blood, some kind of fungal compound. The tests don't make sense. It's not in any medical database. His veins are glowing, Chloe. Chloe hung up. She already knew. That night she packed a bag. Not much. A change of clothes, water, the old map Liam had found in the facility, and a small rusted tin she hadn't opened since they fled Devil's Anvil. Inside were 2 intact vials of the extract. She left the apartment just before dawn. She drove for 12 hours without stopping, the desert rising to meet her like a lover's embrace. The sun was a blister on the horizon. The sand shimmered. She parked where the road turned to nothing and walked the rest of the way. The entrance to the facility was buried now, collapsed, sealed by rock and root and fire. But something remained. In the sand, where the pit had once yawned, there was now a bloom. A single plant, delicate and alien. Its petals were black. Its stem glowed green. It pulsed in time with her heartbeat. She knelt beside it, not afraid. The wind whispered, "You are the vessel." She smiled and buried the vials. Not to destroy it, to feed it, because she finally understood. Guilt doesn't die. It roots, it branches, and it flowers. As she stood, her skin rippled, veins like vines curling beneath her flesh. Behind her, the sand shifted, all across Devil's Anvil. New buds began to rise, waiting, watching, growing. Somewhere far away, in a hospital bed, Liam sat up, eyes glowing, smiling. The desert wasn't cursed. It was fertile, and now it was spreading.